Hey, my name is Will Buchanan. I'm walking all the way across the country to the New Hampshire seacoast in search of more freedom on a project called the Walk for Liberty. Today is December 11th, 2008, day 211. As you could see from the sign earlier, I'm hiking up the rolling hills of the Green Mountains in Vermont. Last night, near the end of my walk, I was looking for places for us to be able to plug in. I stopped by an automobile service shop and asked the owner if I could pay him $10 for us to be able to plug into electricity and park there overnight. At first, he seemed to be hesitant, saying he might get in trouble with the government. Eventually, though, he agreed and said if we parked out back, it should be okay. His mechanic took me around back and showed me where we could park. And I asked him what the owner had meant by that. He told me that the people in the town of Bennington government are really permit happy. And that if somebody saw us out front with a cord plugged into their building, the person might snitch on them to the government, complaining, "They're running a campground! They haven't gotten permission to do that!" I wonder if any of the local campground owners who have bowed down to the government, jumped through their hoops, and paid the bribes to get permission to run a campground would be incentivized to snitch on them in that way. Nah. Isn't it handy how the government has a nice little built-in system for encouraging other people to do their dirty work for them? Unfortunately, the attitude of those potential campground owner snitches seems to be all too common among people today. As I discussed in the Day 191 video, some people might even snitch to the IRS on others who they discover are so-called cheating on their taxes and not paying their fair share. Or someone might snitch to the building code department if they chose to be a good little citizen, fill out the required paperwork, and pay the extortion fees to build an addition onto their house. But they discover their neighbor chose to live like a free person and ignore all that nonsense. Or perhaps if a business owner decides to allow smoking in his own restaurant, which is his own private property, in violation of state law, a patron, who perhaps even could be a rival restaurant owner, could snitch him out to the government. Even though that patron knows full well that he walked into that restaurant by his own choice, and if he doesn't like the restaurant owner's policy, he can also walk out. Basically, it can happen anytime one person has decided to follow a particular government law and is upset that another person has decided to ignore that so-called mandate and instead live their life the way they want to. I've heard it referred to as slaves on the plantation syndrome. Since supposedly if a slave was trying to escape, instead of helping him out, other slaves would often turn him in. Apparently they were envious of the fact that he was actually doing something which they didn't have the guts to do. So instead of helping him out, or even joining him in his escape from bondage, they would turn him in to the master. And that's what's so sad about all these modern day slaves. Many of them might not even like the law, which the other person has been brave enough to disobey. But they decide to turn him in. Instead of joining him in his stand against the government and becoming a fellow civil disobedient. It's time we took a stand against the government and stop letting it pit us against each other. We're all striving toward the same goal, which is to gain more freedom for ourselves. So the next time you see somebody breaking a law which you also don't like, don't be a coward and turn him in just because he has courage. Help that person work toward eliminating that law by showing your moral support, or even better, by joining in and ignoring that law yourself. I walked 12.1 miles for Liberty today, and there's just one day left before we reach New Hampshire. Here are my GPS coordinates. If you appreciate what we're doing to spread the message of freedom on the Walk for Liberty, then please consider supporting our work by contributing at donate.walkforliberty.com. Even a donation as small as $3 helps. Again, that's donate.walkforliberty.com. This is Will Buchanan, signing off. Apparently, my hat has frozen up. Hope you can hear that.